Hey guys, welcome to, I am so excited. This is the very first video for my new channel, Nerdtacular, and I am super excited to have my good friend, Djon, here to share it with me. Say hi, Djon.
Hello. Hi, I'm excited that this is your first one. I didn't realize. That's super exciting.
Yes, the very first one. And Djon and I have chosen something very exciting for the very first one. I have never ever seen the edited shows of my season of Big Brother. And
Yes.
and so Djon and I just got finished watching the very first episode. It was different. I liked it a lot. Let me just get out there. I loved it. But this might be a little bit of a mess because it's going to be kind of stream of consciousness. I took some notes during the episode of thoughts I had, but I'm
I've got
counting on.
plenty of questions.
You got lots of questions? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, well then, I don't even know where to start, Djon. Start to begin. What's your first question?
My first question is, this is the first time that you've seen footage of yourself prior to entering the house. So like the visits back home and things like that. And I'm really curious because we see it season after season. Everybody gets excited to see their key and talk about what they're going to do when they get into the house. Like, do you remember when that was being filmed and what you were thinking the experience was going to be like when you entered the house?
Uh, God, I remember it like it was yesterday, actually. Funny story. So I went to finals. I came back home, and Michelle, my wife, we decided we were going to go to see my friends that lived in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea if I was going to be on the show. All I knew was I had made it as far as I could in the finals process. And so I was down there and they called me, and the show called me, and they asked if I was home. I said no. I told them I'm at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And they said, I heard a bunch of flipping of paper. And then they said, you got to be home tomorrow. And I was like, why do I have to be home tomorrow? And that's when they said, we're going to come to your house and we're going to film. So I thought, okay, well, I mean, obviously I kind of had a feeling maybe I had made the show. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we drove all night from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, back to West Virginia. It was a
Uh-huh.
12-hour drive. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when we see you for the first time, you've gotten home from a 12-hour drive the night before.
2 hours. I had been home for 2 hours when they knocked on my door.
Okay,
Two
so they
hours.
knock on your door. They don't tell you you're on the show. We have to. They're just telling you because I'm under the impression, as somebody who's familiar with these shows, there's going to be people that are taken into sequester as villains as well. So they have to go through the whole process that everybody else goes through. So I'm assuming they have the whole key reveal moment and things like that and don't actually get into the house. So you being a big fan of the show, I'm assuming that you would have similar ideas of what's going down.
Yeah, I was really concerned that maybe I was an alternate. But again, I'm a huge super fan and I didn't know for sure how that went. But here, like I said, I've been home. I was home for 2 hours, and all they told me was they needed to film more footage. That's all I knew. I was not told I was on the show. So
Okay.
I sincerely, 100% hand to God, had no idea I was on the show. Okay. So they come in, they film everything that we saw in the episode. Michelle and I playing video games on the couch, and they did those sorts of things. So here's the thing: they film all that. They go back into my computer room, but before they go back there, they told me I just need to check to make sure we have everything we need, and then we'll get out of your hair. And I said, okay. They're like, we're going to take the footage back to Los Angeles, and if you get cast, they'll call you. That's what I was told.
Okay.
So they go in the back of my house where my computer room was. And the whole way there, of course, my wife and I were talking, right? And I said, do you
Yeah.
think I'm on the show? Do you think I'm on the show? And my wife, she said, Ronnie, they wouldn't be coming from Los Angeles if you weren't on the show. I mean, why else would they be here? And then for them to say that, I felt my stomach drop out of my body. I mean, I was just like, oh God. Oh God, I let myself think I was on the show and I'm not. And so they went in the back, and then after a few minutes when they said that, I looked at my wife, and my wife, my eternal cheerleader, she said, "Don't get upset. You don't know. Maybe they'll still pick you. I'm sure they'll call you." She's being positive because my wife is the eternal positive optimist, right?
So
And
I'm assuming this conversation's happening because you haven't had that key moment yet.
right, I have not gotten my key yet. Yes.
Okay.
And so they go back there, a few minutes go by, and then I hear, actually, we didn't get a good enough shot of you at your computer. Can you come back and sit down at the computer again? And I said, sure. And so my wife said, get yourself together, put on your camera face, go do this. And I walk in the back of the house to my computer room. I no sooner get past them, the guy grabs my wife and said, he's on the show. He's about to get his key. When he screams, I want you to yell, you have an hour to pack.
Okay, so wait, I'm assuming you didn't hear her get told that though.
No,
Right.
I did not hear that. No.
Okay, so you walk into the room to film this extra bit and they've hidden a key for you to find.
Yes.
They go to Michelle and they tell her, you are about to say to him, you have an hour to pack.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's what she's given to go in and find you. You have this amazing moment. So they do have that moment of, we want there to be some excitement. We want to get some kind of authentic surprise. And we want that to be, and I mean, when we watched your moment, I think your response was, wow. I don't think you remember reacting as big as you did.
No, because and what they didn't show, because you only see a tiny little blip, right?
Right.
When I pulled out my keyboard and I looked at my key, I almost hyperventilated because I spent almost a whole minute going because I couldn't believe it was there. I mean, can you imagine? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you were like, this is the moment. And at that moment, you know you're in the house. And
Yeah.
that's, I can just, well, I'd never thought about it. Because now I've got my own curiosity going. Do you know of any cases where anybody was taken in as an alternate? Like, have there been people who have received the key and then they were told you're an alternate? Do you know what I mean? Does that happen?
Yes. And I do know of one. I don't want to share a name because I want to respect this person.
No, you don't need to. But I was curious if that's what happens.
But I will say this person did make it into the house ultimately. They did make it in.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they got their key.
I'm just by that.
Yeah, they got their key. And as soon as they stopped filming, the guy goes, okay, so you're an alternate.
No.
Ah.
That was the moment that I was curious about. Like, if they'd have to say, all right, you've had the moment of excitement, however, you are an alternate. Okay, that's just for me, the super fan who's like, obviously they need to have backups. How do they go about this?
Yeah.
All right, so you've been given the key. You've not been told that you're an alternate, which you don't even know at the time is an option. But
yeah, I didn't know that could happen.
Right. So do you actually get 1 hour to pack? What's the deal?
I did. I really only had 1 hour to pack because, like I said, remember I drove from South Carolina. And I really was like, oh, crap, I only have an hour to pack.
You're like, no. Okay, so you have an hour to pack. And then I guess we should just speed through to the moment that you're, I guess, walking out to see everyone for the first time. Because that's where our journey with you starts. We see you receiving your key, and then we see you walking in, You're not allowed to talk to anybody. You're standing out the front of the house. I guess Julie's it's just a voice. You're just listening to Julie talk to you.
Yep, we can just hear Julie. We can't see her. We can just hear her. And oh God, my heart was racing in that moment because I was so excited. I mean, I had been auditioning since season 8 and on. This was my 8, 9. This is my 4th time auditioning. 4th.
Wow. So the dream was coming true. You're standing on the steps of the Big Brother house. You're about to get let in, and then you're one of the 4 people, one of the first 4 names called. Well, you're the first name called out.
Yes, which was a huge honor to me. Oh my gosh, that was such a huge honor to have my name called first. That was a dream come true too. This sounds dumb, but it was. It was.
Well, I mean, even just from the teasers for the season, we've sent those back and forth prior to all of this. Even just in the lead up to the people entering the house, we see a lot of footage from you. We even saw you were the finale when it came to See You in the Big Brother house. Like, you were the guy hanging out the window for your season. That was you. So we had a lot of Ronnie. Your name was the first called out. So clearly you're the name that we remembered. You were the caricature. Like, I was thinking about, because I've been watching a lot of the seasons in the lead up to your season, we haven't really had the token nerd. It hasn't really fit into the themes of the show. Like, we've had smart people, but we haven't had gamers. We haven't had geeks or things like that. What's even funnier is that you weren't branded offbeat. You were branded brains, but we'll obviously get to that. Okay, so you enter the house, you're running in with these 4 people. How long is it before the next people run in?
Oh, I want to say it was maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 tops, maybe. It wasn't long.
So it's just an ability for you guys to kind of really just connect with each other, and then we see 4 people at a time, just introducing, rather than 13 to 16 people running in and introducing themselves. It's just too much.
Yeah, we really just had enough time to find our beds, say hello, tell our names, and then we kind of looked around for a few minutes, and then the next group came in.
Perfect. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Just enough time to get established, but still enough time to get you on your toes for the next group of people. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. First impressions of the people standing on the steps. I'm curious.
Well, first off, I would say the person that I responded the best to based on just first impressions was Kevin.
Okay. Well, he was the last person to walk up to the group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So all of you would have been able to get a good read on him, I'm assuming, just from him walking up.
Right. But when Kevin walked out, he immediately struck me as a lot of fun. He immediately seemed like someone I wanted to be friends with and get to know.
Sure. And just, I'm curious, because I was looking at everybody and I was like, I wonder if they all dressed to impress. Like, did everybody think, all right, this is going to be my look to walk into the house? Kevin's wearing his pink shirt with the nice scarf going on. You've got Lydia with like the little fascinator thing in her hair and all that kind of stuff. I was just wondering if any thought goes into that. Like, this is the first impressions.
Well, I know when I picked out my outfit for move-in day, that was my thought. I thought I wanted to pick something that was me. That way, when people saw me, they kind of got a feel for who I am. And also something that kind of was like nice for the cameras for move-in,
Yeah. I mean, it's cute. I'm like, obviously I know you, and I'm seeing a version of you from 11 years ago. I've never met that person. I never got to meet that person, but he was so excited. You walked out with this huge smile on your face. And it's just, I'm curious as to if you remember those really raw, authentic initial moments before getting into the game. Because obviously, the game took you completely to a place that you didn't even know you were going to get to. So it's just those raw, authentic moments. You have that moment of running into one room. The 4 of you split up into two different rooms. You didn't all take up a room together. Was there any? Did you read into that at all? Or was it just so exciting to tell?
It was literally just like raw emotions. There was no thought process once we got in there. Having watched the show, I busted to the bedrooms. I just went running. Like, I mean, I didn't realize until I watched it tonight how much I almost mowed over everyone in my path. Poor Russell, Laura, and who went in? Braden. No one. Braden. Who went in with us? It was Russell, Laura, Kevin. Kevin went in with us. Yeah. I almost ran over
put
them.
your arm like in front of Laura and just like push through, which is hilarious. But all right, so give me the next phase. I mean, the ball's in your court now. Everybody starts entering the house. Let's hear it.
Well, I will say the next moment that really struck out in my mind, that memory that was brought up. So we're sitting there in the living room. We do our first impression interviews, and that was a lot of fun. I also will say, fun fact, this was a memory brought back. The very first person in Big Brother 11 to get called to the diary room was Casey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you heard Casey, please come to the diary room. That was the first time you guys heard that.
Yes. And so he gets up, he starts to head towards the diary room, and I'll never forget, he stops, he turns around, he goes, "Now, while I'm going, please don't decide to vote out the old guy."
Well, that's kind of going to be your fear when entering the diary room, that people are just going to start talking about you because you're not there.
Right. And I remember when he walked in through the door to the diary room, Lydia commented on his jeans had little rhinestone looking things on the back of them. And Lydia commented on that. I just remembered that watching the show. I'd forgotten about it. And then I was like, I remember that now.
It's funny because you're going to obviously watch this and you're going to have things like memories flood back in that, not that you've blocked them out, it's just they haven't needed to come back to the forefront of your mind. Was there anything else in the episode that really kind of did that for you?
Yeah. When Julie talked to us for the first time, when I saw her, because there's the TV screen in the living room, right? Mm-hmm. When she popped up on it for the first time, it finally hit me. I was like, my dream came true. I am sitting in the living room of the house.
Right, because she's already spoken to you guys, but this is your first time seeing her.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And all
right.
I finally let myself believe it really came true, I guess is what I'm saying, for that moment.
I mean, and that's incredible, because at that moment you're sitting on the couch as she's talking to you, like the game's begun, but I mean, you're sitting there waiting for that, expect the unexpected moment, but first moment, like, that something's coming, clearly.
Yeah, and then I'm probably getting this out of order, but now there was a long time. The episode makes it seem like she told us very quickly that there was a twist and all that. But we were like in the house, I want to say, for several hours before we found out.
Okay, just getting to know each other.
Yeah, we were talking. We got to walk around the house. We could not get in the HOH room to see what it looked like. And that immediately made me nervous because I wondered what was going on.
So wait, okay. So if you're in there for a few hours, what is Ronnie thinking prior to having that conversation with Julie? Are you assuming that this is just an individual season? It's going to play out like the last season? Do you have a strategy going in?
Yeah, I kind of assumed it was going to be an individual game. I thought maybe there would be a twist because, again, being a super fan, I know season 10, the twist was no twist. So I kind of felt like there had to be a twist that season. But not knowing what was going on at that time, I was still very much, honestly, you're going to die laughing, but I'm being very real here. I have a bad case of male RBF. So I kept having to tell myself half smile at all times. That way you're not perceived as negative.
Because for everybody playing at home, that's resting B face. So it's just like, you just wanted to come across approachable and very nice, and
Yeah.
you're okay. And I mean, that's a great strategy because I've had my own experiences where I've played in like like miniature versions of these kinds of things, and I was drawn to the person with a massive smile on their face, and you're like, they look fun, they look inviting, and you don't think that it's going to be such a big thing, but it's huge, and I can imagine that everybody would have just thought that you were really approachable at that point.
Well,
So
I didn't know that, but now watching the episode tonight, Kevin called me a lovable geek. I mean, everyone, it clearly worked. Everyone was like, oh, he seems nice.
except, I mean, you did get one person say that they didn't think that they were necessarily going to warm to you.
Yeah, big shocker, Russell. Russell said he didn't think, what was it? He didn't think he was going to, I would be the person he'd call to have a beer with. That's what it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's no surprise to see. Obviously, anybody who's watched the season knows the arc that the two of you went. I just think it's really interesting to see his impression of you from the first episode. Because I mean, even when you were going around first impressions, and he was saying that he was a fighter, you were like, "Whoa, a fighter's in the house!" Like you were really impressed. I mean, you seemed very expressive to everybody as you were going around. How much of that was strategy?
Um, I would say only about maybe 15 to 20% of it was strategy because I really felt it was really interesting. Now, the other thing is, I think now, like we were talking about earlier, time has dulled my memory, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I do remember they didn't show this in the episode, but a story Russell told us when we were talking about ourselves. Russell told us, and I don't know Russell well enough, so it could have been a line just to, whatever. But he told us that he had
Uh-huh.
been in a bad motorcycle accident and couldn't walk and had retaught himself how to walk.
Wow. So wait, so you know now that this was not true?
I don't know. I still don't know. Like, I don't think it's true, but it could be true. I don't know. But I mean, you hear
But that
things
was
like
one of the
that.
initial things.
Yeah, you hear things like that and they're impressive. They're so impressive.
I mean, that is an impressive story if that's the case, because like I'm sure that somebody else from another show has had a very similar experience to that, and you hear that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, they're capable of doing anything. So it's a
Right.
very risky story to be sharing,
Yeah.
straight off the bat. But
Right.
he didn't seem like somebody who was going to hold back. He seemed like somebody who was really going to push forward. I compared him because I've gone back and watched. I saw Cappy, Eric in season 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that they're a very similar archetype, that kind of like big vibrato, big personality. So did you know going into the house that you were going to come across these personalities, and did you have a way to kind of like combat that?
Well, you never know who's going to be in the house with you, of course. But I had assumed there was going to be some type of muscular, athletic types in the house. There always are, right? I mean, every season of Big Brother has them. Um, and I was intimidated when I heard him say he's an MMA fighter because, I mean, it's so weird for me to put myself back in that frame of mind now because it's been 11 years since this
Yeah.
happened. But that Ronnie 11 years ago had never lived outside of West Virginia or Appalachia. So
Okay.
that Ronnie had no experience around these types of personalities. So really, I was impressed by everything I was hearing. I didn't know a Laura. I didn't know a Shima. I didn't know a Kevin. I didn't know a Russell, or I knew lots of Jordans. I'm just going to say that. I knew lots of Jordans.
Okay.
But I didn't know a Braden, a surfer. I knew no surfers. We don't have an ocean in West
Yeah, like
Virginia.
I'm gonna say you didn't have the beach nearby. That's not gonna
No.
happen. But I mean, that's a really good kind of everybody had their own thing, and it's not like you were going to see these people come together in real life, which is what you want out of a season of Big Brother. You want to see, as much as you want to see the game, you want to see the social experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you definitely covered something that people hadn't seen before. So I think that was very exciting. And I'm assuming you were extremely excited about that as well.
Yeah. And people, I remember them asking me why I spent so much time talking to Shima and Natalie and Lydia and Kevin as opposed to other like Laura and them. Well, I never would have lived with them. So I wanted to get to know people I would have never had the opportunity to get to know.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm very much drawn to people who are different from me because there's something to learn, there's something to take away from the experience. I'm sure, like you just said, you knew lots of Jordans, so it's not that you had a disdain towards Jordan. You just
Right, exactly.
It wasn't something completely fascinating about this person where you'll have the opportunity to connect to this person on a personal level eventually, but there wasn't that instant interesting thing to come from this one individual.
Right.
But it was funny because the first four people to be shown were Jeff, Jordan, yourself, and Natalie, right? And
I think so,
that was, in that order of like, hi, I'm Jeff. Hi, I'm Jordan. And I just thought that was so interesting to see the people get, because I think your season, particularly, everybody is fairly memorable. Like there's no real floaters that just kind of like you look back at your season later and go, wait, who was that? And I think specifically based off of the theme, everybody's going to remember this was in that group, that was in that group, and it really kind of helps to paint that picture. To go back to that theme, what was your thoughts when you heard that there was going to be a 13th player and they were outside of the game? Like, because what you only knew that Jesse walked into the house when Jesse walked into the house. You actually didn't have the information the audience was receiving.
Right. Well, okay, so we're back there. Like Julie told us in the house, we found out just like everyone heard on the show. She didn't tell us what cliques we were in. She said, you'll find out later. We go in the backyard. That's when we find out what cliques are in. We had spent a lot of time talking about what cliques we thought we might end up in. And I kind of thought I may have ended... See, I knew it was going to be brains or offbeat. I knew it was either going to be brains because of my speech and debate experience, which is what it ended up being, or I honestly thought I could have ended up in the offbeat clique because I spent a lot of time in the process talking about being in theater.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I would have just assumed it would have been the whole gamer edit, where you don't necessarily have to be a brain to be a gamer, but you can definitely be an offbeat because it's just kind of like, it's the high school, like that's the gamer dude.
Right. But see,
plays magic cards.
I also talked about playing Dungeons and Dragons. I talked about board, all those things. You know what I mean? So I thought, I really felt very strongly I was going to end up in the brains, but I knew there was maybe, however small, a chance I might have ended up in offbeat. And I wanted to be an offbeat because I didn't want to have the target of being a brain.
Of course, because I'm assuming that everybody who ended up in the brains was just instantly automatically like, I'm going to have a massive target on my back that I'm going to be this like this super smart person, where I'm sure like we saw the edit that Natalie didn't want to be seen as a jock. She didn't want to be seen as an athlete and then to get thrown into the athletes. So everybody kind of had something revealed about themselves.
Right.
Was there anybody who just didn't, like, obviously we're not going to see it, but did anybody express that they weren't comfortable with their label?
Kevin didn't really like it, as I remember. Not when I say didn't like it, I mean he didn't want to be labeled. I mean, and really, I mean, think about who wants to be labeled. No one. You don't want to be labeled.
Right.
But that's part of the game. It's what was thrust on us.
But it was less the fact that he was labeled as an offbeat. It was just the fact that he was labeled in general.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. You're being put under the microscope in this game, and you don't want things to be revealed.
Right. But then Julie told us that nobody in the backyard would be HOH. And that's when we knew there would be someone else.
Okay.
But if I'm being totally honest, we never thought for a second it would be a returning house guest.
Really? So you thought it could have been like a prior season where somebody might know someone, like, but they'd be a new player to the game? Or you just thought it was just some brand new random person?
Here's what I thought. Because Because in the episode, I remember Julie saying, in the studio with me, I have 4 potential house guests. Okay.
Right.
She didn't tell us that. She didn't tell us that the person was no stranger to the house until after Jesse, the athletes, won. Right.
Okay. Oh, so that was the first time you guys.
Yes.
So I'm now my brain's going. What would have? So you would have just thought that maybe this person was a super athlete, this other person was a super brains, like someone to do with like popular culture, and someone to do with, I don't know, being a super established athlete person.
Oh yeah. Until Julie told us that this person was no stranger to the Big Brother house, all 12 of us thought it was that they were 4 potential random people who'd gone through the process just like we did. And then because when they told us that, after I fell, I made the comment to Michelle, and I have no way of knowing if that's what I was saying at the time, but I noticed watching the episode tonight, there were a couple times I was leaning in Michelle's ear talking, and I'm going to tell myself that that's what I was saying. But I remember saying to Michelle that, how would you feel having gone through this whole process, and then you were one of the 4 people that 3 of you are not getting in the house?
Oh, so you were like putting yourself in their shoes. So you
Yes.
specifically remember it thinking that it was just a regular person who had the chance of getting into the house.
Yes, and I felt so bad. And I felt so guilty because I was the second one to fall. And I remember saying I crushed someone's dream because I could not hold on to that toilet seat.
Oh, you put a lot of pressure on yourself, people think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we learned that you didn't crush anybody's dream of going into the house for the first time, but you did not necessarily help Brian to get back into the house and get to live out that experience.
And I want to say, because it didn't label it on the competition, they didn't say how long we were up there. I was up there for like 35 minutes. And you can't tell this by looking at the competition, but those toilet seats were connected to a rope that went to just a pulley, and I was holding up all 220 pounds of my weight.
Right. So, would you say that the wedgie you were experiencing was not assisting you in any way?
No, it was no, it was hard. Like, so yeah.
So you were just hanging there.
Yeah, just dead hanging, supporting my own weight. So for me, the nerdy guy who at that time had not gone to the gym really a whole lot, I feel that hanging onto 220 pounds dead weight for 35 minutes is very, very impressive.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna. That was very impressive. You all did obviously an extremely good job. It was very hard. I think the interesting takeaway from that experience is that you got to see Laura say in her confessional that she could have hung on for longer.
Yes.
But she decided to drop because she didn't want to come up as a threat.
Right. And I told you when we were watching it, just 2 days ago, I was talking to Laura on the phone, and she told me she wished she had hung onto the toilet seat longer, and she could have. And then she said it in the DR, and I was like, oh man.
There you go. So, but these are the things that you won't have known because you haven't gone back and watched it.
Right.
So you literally have had 10 years to sit on thoughts and feelings that you experienced from being inside the game, but you've never actually been able to like observe it and go back. And that's the fascinating part for me. That's the part that I'm really intrigued by because I'm waiting for the moment that we're watching the show and you go, it all makes sense now. Like I'm waiting for that penny to drop and for you just to be like, oh, I wish I knew, or something along those lines.
Right. I'm sure it'll happen.
Which is very exciting.
I'm sure it'll happen. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get through. So the athletes. Okay, so you're out of the challenge. Who did you want to win?
Shima, of course. I mean, because then I was going to have safety for the first week.
Right. Okay. So that's the obvious choice. But Shima is out, and there's still 3 other groups. Did you have a preference of who pulled through?
Anyone except for the athletes.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Just curious. Just curious. obviously, so the challenge finishes, and you essentially have your worst nightmare happen then at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out from the point of the challenge finishing and Julie saying that they're going to have an extra member of their group to the point that Jesse walks in. Did you guys have time to like debrief about like what just happened? How do you think this is going to work out? Blah, blah, blah. Or does he just like enter the house after you guys enter the house?
It wasn't long. We went back in the house and it wasn't long. I want to say maybe 15 minutes tops. Maybe. It was not long.
Oh, okay. So you guys have this like crushing blow. You didn't win the challenge, and then all of a sudden you've got Jesse in the house, who I'm assuming you had just watched his season. Did you have an impression of him coming into the house?
Honestly, my first impression of him coming in was I thought he was a good complement to what I lacked in the game. He was a physical person. He could win physical competitions. I just thought it was a good opportunity to not just that, but I thought I'm gonna pick his brain about Big Brother. I mean, I'm a super fan. I want to know about the show, so I thought he's gonna be able to tell me things I wouldn't be able to find out otherwise.
Interesting. And you know, he had just played a season with Dan, who obviously is a very impressive game player. So I'm sure you would have just picked his brain about his season in general, and just. Yeah. I mean, that would have been the fun stuff that you could talk to him about. Like, you were never going to run out of things to ask Jesse about. And, you know, the same rule applies to Jesse as to everyone else. Everybody loves having questions about themselves. You know, everybody's going to talk till they're blue in the face about themselves. So I can see you just having that kind of relationship with him. So I'm trying to think about where the episode went at this point, because, like, technically we're at the end of the episode now. We see Jesse enter the house.
Yeah, and then all it did was it showed a whole bunch of clips from stuff that I guess happened sometime in the first few days. Like I remember they showed the clip of me bench pressing with Jesse at the weight bench. I was I thought of course they showed that.
You started asking for he became a bit of your guru kind of thing when it came to working out in the gym, right?
Which was a big part of my strategy with him.
From memory, it's been a few years since I've watched your season, but I do believe that gets expressed in the show that you're using it as like a strategy. But we'll have to see how that applies into the future episodes. But just, I mean, I want to, after watching this episode, is there any like takeaways, any like, you're surprised that you had a certain impression of a certain person, anything like that?
Nothing really shocked me this episode except for Shima saying that she wasn't happy with her clickmates. I was like, no, Shima, the shade.
And I think the moments that stood out to me in your reactions were Casey in the diary room.
He was
funny. You very much enjoyed watching Casey in the diary room. Yes. I'm trying to remember specifically what moments, but on top of that, just the montage of all of you talking prior to entering the house and seeing who was played on whose comments, because that's always fun. Yes. And they're like, do you want to express any more about that?
I really laughed about Jeff saying I made the comment about I'm taking my bag, but all I need is this. And then Jeff said, I'm not an arithmetic guy.
Right. And then it was just like, so there's that one going from you into him and that. And I mean, obviously you're going to like stand out the ones that they're like, who did they play against me? Who did they think that I wasn't going to get along with? Or, you know, and then
Laura
obviously
and
you had
Laura and Kevin.
I mean, but these are so funny because these are your friends now. You know, these are people that you know in real life. These aren't, like, for me, these are people that played in a reality game. So I get to see characters being I guess, pit against each other. But you get to see like real life people being pit against each other, which I find extremely fascinating. Because that's like me, just with a group of friends being like, I said something, and then they put my mate next to me and made him look stupid. Like, that's the edit of the show. That's the fun of the show. So I've told you time and time again that there are certain things in the show that you're going to experience for the first time. You have impressions of people in the house that their edit is completely different to the things that you perceive. Um, I'm really interested to see that play out. And I don't think that off first impressions, I don't think you're really surprised by anybody's edit. You haven't given me that impression.
No, not so far. No. The thing that really my mind was kind of clicking was when I saw, and of course I already knew that the other three potential returning house guests, who they were, but I found myself thinking, man, who would have really been best for my game if they'd gotten in instead of Jesse? And
So this is the first time thinking about it from
yeah,
seeing them standing in the studio, right?
yeah. And I have to say, Cowboy would have been best for my game.
Because he's loyal to a fault, that man.
Yeah.
And you've watched all the seasons so closely that I could just see you picking each person and saying, this is how I'm going to play with that person, knowing the game that they played last time.
Right. Yeah.
And you already said when it came to Jesse, you had a strategy when it came to like the things that he's interested in and all that kind of stuff, and you wanted to pick his game about Big Brother. You're a smart man, Ronnie, and they were very smart to put you in the brains group. I was going to say tribe, but you weren't necessarily a tribe. You were a clique. And just first impressions to there being a high school clique, like, was that traumatizing for you?
It's something that I don't want to say it was traumatizing, but I would be lying if I said I had a lot of good memories of high school, you know? It's something I moved beyond, but I don't know.
And how about the fact that you're such a big Big Brother fan, and that this was the theme that was based around your season? Like, how did you like? Was there like I don't want this theme around my season? Like we've seen partner seasons where it's like you're stuck with someone. Like, did you think of this being stuck with two people, or is this something that you were like, I can make this work?
I remember being like, I'm fine with this because I remember thinking, well, there's safety in numbers. And I instantly picked up on the fact that with how the twist was structured, it was far more important to make friends with other cliques than it was to make friends with your own.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because they can't nominate you. So.
Even if they wanted to.
Even if they wanted to, they could not nominate
you. One moment that I remembered where you responded was when Natalie tells everybody that she's 18 years old, and then we see a confessional from Kevin.
He had her. Oh, yeah. I was impressed. I'm watching you, Kevin. I'm watching you. And if you're on BB22, I better see that same slyness. I better see that same intelligence, because you're going to need it.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. I mean, this is an All-Stars season coming up. So I have a feeling that there is so many people going back and watching old seasons of Big Brother. I'm doing it myself. I didn't get to watch the older seasons play out. I started watching in season 15. So for me, the idea of there being themes around a Big Brother season didn't exist for me, because seasons 15 through to now, they've all been individual games. If there is a twist, I think I got like a twin twist when it had already been played out. But nobody has pre-existing relationships otherwise. Nothing like, I mean, your season definitely had a theme. It was super enhanced. You had a very enhanced season, and you had to play it to the rule of expect the unexpected. And I'm excited to see you see yourself adapt to that. And also to think about what you would have played differently now, not because you knew that it didn't work in your favor, but just because you are a different person now, and you're like, what was I thinking?
Right.
Like, I'm just interested to see how that kind of comes out. Just knowing that you're 10 years older and just have a completely different idea of the world. You've met people from different places now. You have a better understanding of different things. Like that for me, I'm excited about. So I mean, we just spent an hour talking about the first episode. But I mean, obviously, we're not going to be able to do this for every single episode. I think the plan right now is we're going to go through each round.
Yes, we're going to watch the 3 episodes of the week, and we're going to do one video talking about the week as a whole.
Yes. I'm so excited. And for me, it's, I mean, 3 episodes is a lot more content, but we get to see some, and hear from your perspective. I mean, you have one of the most iconic HOH.
Oh gosh, I'm nervous to watch that. I'm so nervous.
Because you haven't watched it. I mean, I'm nervous to hear about it after you watching it because, I mean, it's infamous. Ronnie is infamous for his HOH reign, and that's been something where I've said to you, like, you need to watch how you were not only edited but perceived, not only by people in the house but people outside of the house.
Yes.
So. And it feels like it's like a long enough time for you to be removed from the game. We could have probably given it like another 5 years, and it would be 15 years, but you know what? It's time. There's people going back to the house on seasons prior to yours or after. We don't know. We don't know what this cast is. There's just speculation. Yes. But this is a good time for you to kind of just be able to relive your own moments while they're in a house, having to relive theirs. Because I'm sure we're going to be getting a lot of flashbacks.
I hope we get a lot of flashbacks. I just, and I'm excited. We're going to have some of my fellow castmates join us from time to time to relive the weeks with us.
That'll be cool. That'll be very cool.
Yeah. Some other things. We got some secrets coming up, some of our own little twists, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Djon, I'm so glad you're doing this with me. I don't think I could do this on my own. I mean that.
I mean, I'm glad that I can be here for you because I think I said it to you the other week. I'm like, you don't have to watch it alone. Like, you can have me to kind of like bounce off of. I will be your soundboard. I will hear you out. I'm not going to sit here and critique you like all of the, Reddit groups would have torn you a new one, saying what you should have done. I'm going to sit here and be like, I get it. It's a crappy situation.
Right.
That's fine. And we get to listen to you, hear it all out. And it's funny if we do get other people from your season giving their perspectives, just that back and forth for me is going to be so fascinating. And I'm sure other people are going to be so intrigued by that. One last thing is we're going into this All-Star season. This is probably going to be one of the only, we might get 1 or 2 of these in before the season starts. What are things that you want to see on this new All-Star season? I know that you really loved that in the first All-Star season, the house was decorated with like memorabilia from the season.
Yes.
So, like, what are you looking forward to?
I want to see some wistful nostalgia. I want to see decorations in the house that bring back memories of seasons past. I want to see so many fun things. I know you can't really do this right now with COVID-19 and it sucks, but I want to see former house guests that aren't playing come back, even if it's via just video, to like host competitions or just really fun things. You know what I mean? Because it's weird now because I was just a super fan for the first All-Stars, which the first All-Stars is what inspired me to actually audition for the show.
Wow. So, there you go.
This brings it full circle for me. Yeah, this is like full circle for me.
There you go. I mean that is pretty iconic in itself. The fact that the season that you got inspired to play is now kind of being revived in a second edition, and you're getting to relive your own experience. It's like the Ronnie hour right now, like nostalgia to the max. And
I'm excited. Yeah. And I'm excited for the All-Stars because I want to see some incredible cutthroat gameplay. That's what I want to see. I just.
All right, so you being the super fan that you are, not going off any spoilers, any like rumored casts or anything like that. Who were the people that you would have loved to have seen in an All Stars edition? If you had to pick like 2 guys and 2 girls, like we could be here all day otherwise.
I want to see Danielle Reyes again. I would like to see, and I want to see Michelle Costa. I would want to see Michelle Costa. I'm gonna say it. And guys, I'm not gonna choose myself. I would want to see Ian, and I want to see Kevin. I'm gonna say it. I mean it, Kevin. Because Kevin would have obviously I know how the season ends, but Kevin would have won.
Well, but it's interesting because you have an opinion of Kevin from the show, having experienced the show with him. I'm interested to see your opinion of him based off of his diary room confessionals and the edit. So that'll be fun to watch play out. So I guess that's probably a good note to leave this on.
Oh, yeah. Guys, so we're going to be doing this, like I said, a video for a week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to be posting them. And I have other things in the works that we're going to post that too. So please join us.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.